joined on the other line by Rob Yahrmarkt. Rob, welcome to the show. And I want to also say professional archer. We're going to dive into that. And we're into January, mid-January. You got the Lancaster archery shoot's going to be happening here in the next couple of weeks. I'm seeing local bigger clubs saying, come do your Lancaster archery pre-shoot things here in Pennsylvania. You're coming from Michigan. So Rob, I'm super pumped to have you on the show to not only talk about hunting stuff, but also a passion of mine and a lot of listeners is archery as well. So dude, I appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Love doing this stuff. So anytime I get an opportunity to talk about it for a while and share and just have good conversation, I'm all for it.
Heck yeah, dude. So before we dive into all that good stuff, I got to ask, are you into football at all?
Yeah, it's kind of a yes, I definitely am, but
Yeah.
it's really tough for me to get into it if it's not my team. I'm a huge
Okay.
University of Michigan fan, and then I've grown to become a Lions fan. I'll call it. I'm a bandwagon guy. It's been so miserable watching them
Yeah.
for years and stuff. So you just always rooted. Just come on, can we just have a change? Could this be our year and stuff? And then Dan Campbell comes in and almost off to the same start. Same old Lions, as people say, and to see it, just a night and day difference. It's energetic for Michigan, for the city of Detroit. I live just outside of Detroit. So, I mean, you're seeing, I think one of the local PDs is wearing Detroit Lions caps instead of their PD, hat and restaurants and stuff. So yeah, it's been exciting. It's good to finally be on like the winning side of it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Where things are looking up. So
No, that's awesome because I'm a phys ed teacher. I've been a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan here. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, and where I kind of grew up, my dad was always an Eagles fan. He was a Phillies fan, but we went to a lot of New York Yankee games when I was a kid, and my grandfather was a big Yankees fan, and I kind of gravitated towards that. And everybody kind of bust my chops. They're like, "How are you a New York Yankees fan and a Philadelphia Eagles fan?" And I'll root for the Phillies, other than if we're in the World Series against each other. But it is cool, and I'll tell you what, man, I have a ton of respect for Dan Campbell. I think it's his transition for what he's done to that organization. I mean, obviously higher up people deserve a lot of credit in that situation as well. But himself as a coach, he really needs to be studied in a sense of being able to put out a book for coaches. I used to be a varsity baseball coach, and kind of my last year, I fell back in love with doing it. I had a great group of kids, and my first couple of years, obviously, I loved it as well. But there was a middle part that I don't know, I kind of lost it a little bit. And he you hear some of the stuff that he's done already and have said, it's like, man, I'd suit up for him. I would go run through a wall, and I think it's really neat. And like you said, just what it brings to that city and that fan base is really, really cool. I mean, it's just they're going to be tough to beat this year. That's for dang sure.
Yep. Yeah, I used to coach college wrestling. I wrestled my entire life, athletics and stuff, and then I got into coaching myself. And like, I think the thing that you hear so much about him is like he's a player's coach, right? People you just gather and gain so much respect and trust from being a former player. Like they just know you've earned it at one point. You went through the trenches and stuff. So I think there's so much to be said for having a coach that's lived it, right? And you just know, like, hey, he's lived it, he's learned, he knows what it takes, either from mistakes in the past or successes that he's had. So I think that's why so many people and all those guys just they love playing for him, man. They run through a brick wall for him every week. We're so injured and banged up, and they still
They win.
find a way. Yep, they still find a way. So
Well, that's
yeah,
neat to hear that you did wrestling, because I never wrestled. It's funny because I'm not very tall. I'm only 5'7", and just I'm kind of broad shouldered. I have that wrestling kind of build, but I never wrestled growing up. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are like, "Oh man, did you wrestle when you were younger?" And I said, "No." They're like, "Oh, you look like you did and stuff." And I have a crap ton of respect for guys that do. But when you look at that, that's an individual sport. Obviously, you're a part of a team aspect as well, like going out there. But as far as, between when you step out on the mat, it's mano a mano. And all the sports that I've always played, it was always a team sport: baseball, football, basketball, those types of things. How has that maybe, like, can you, because as a baseball coach, I always loved when I had football players. I always loved when I had basketball players, just because they're bringing other aspects and gaining skills. I mean, obviously guys that play baseball year round, like they work on their craft, but sometimes they weren't always the best players, right? Some of your best players were guys that were just gritty and go out there and do things and just really good overall athletes. How has that helped you even now as like what you're doing on the line or out on the 3D course as far as like training for something individually like wrestling to now obviously archery?
I think like the easiest way for me to put it is I feel like I failed as a wrestler, through college and stuff like that. I had, I went to college with my two best friends that I wrestled with since I was in middle school. Both of them were all Americans. Like I was in the shadows. I was the third wheel, from our hometown, and even locally I went to a small Division III college. So, I feel like I still have something to prove. And so that's almost been the most difficult part of this professional journey, is that I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder and I have stuff to prove, mostly probably to myself, that I can do this. But trying to turn pro as a new father, and I live in the city, I have what I feel is the biggest mountain to climb. Like I just don't have the situation, especially for unknown archery, to be able to go judge targets all the time and have a course set out and be able to practice when I want to and stuff. I still work a 40, 50-hour week job in sales. I have a beautiful wife. I have two beautiful kids, and I live in a 1,500 square foot condo currently. It's just best for our family, a good starter place. And so yeah, that's been maybe, man, I want this so bad. I want to be successful at it. But right now it's just been extremely tough to at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself. You control your own destiny. That's the great thing about wrestling, right? I didn't have to have a great team. I could control my own destiny. I could train myself. I could eat, sleep right, and weight train, do all the stuff individually. You need good partners and stuff, but it's very much individualistic sport. So, I don't want to make excuses, but it's just a tall mountain to climb. So again, I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder, and I think it stems from my past failures and my entire life wrestling. I had a lot of great success wrestling as well. So I know what it's like to I think just the mental toughness that wrestling gives you, especially for so long when you're down and things just aren't going well. I don't know, you can just kind of figure it out. I don't get overly angry if I shoot a 5. Hell, I've missed targets, underjudge them. Like, I've never gotten to a point that I want to snap a stabilizer or just cuss and swear. I think you're not happy about it. You're frustrated, but I don't lose my cool and know that, hey, that's done. That match is done. That arrow's done. I gotta get on to the next one. So I think it's helped, in numerous aspects, and that's why I still want to like scratch the competitive itch now. Is that I just didn't accomplish what I wanted to, and yeah, I think this was just another good outlet, to see what else I can do.
Dude, that's really cool to hear, like the discipline aspect of that, just because, just to even maybe you could even give some light into individuals like myself. So last year, I mean, I grew up, I'm 37, I'll be 38 this June. I grew up archery hunting my whole, since I could hunt at 12 years old here in the state of PA. They didn't have like that mentor program when I was growing up, and until it was like 12 years old, that's when you could go and, if you could draw back the legal poundage, you can. And when I was 13, that's when I shot my first whitetail with the bow. And ever since then I was hooked. I've been chasing that feeling ever since, basically that high of that first moment. But this past year, I mean, I shot local 3D shoots with buddies and all that type of stuff, but never really shot for score. Never, like, other than like who's buying lunch today type of ordeal. Never really sat down and put, pen to paper of going walking the course and all that type of stuff. And since I've not been coaching, last summer was basically, or at the end of the school year, was year 2 for me. I was like, man, I need that competitive edge. Exactly what you just said, like fulfilling that thing that we have of former athletes in some fashion. There's just something that, I feel like you miss, and no matter what sport you played. So I was like, you know what? I want to become a better archer. I love this sport so much. I have so much respect for individuals like yourself, and beyond. and for people that want to get into it and that want to get better. So I was like, let's push yourself, man. Let's compete. And even on the smallest of small scales, like I'm not going to the national events or anything like that. It is just finally registering to go compete and put myself out there. Like, you have to put a score on. And I competed in the men's 4,500 new class in the ASA, and where I could obviously move my dial. And my first event, I think I was up against like 6 or 7 other people. I came in second. And then the next one I did, I finished fourth. And I did another like kind of Northeastern thing here. I only competed in I competed in one of them. I didn't do too well, and that one was that one was a fixed pin 3-pin, and I haven't shot that stuff since I was like 12, 13, 15 years old. So I didn't do too well that day. And that day specifically, I couldn't wait to get off the course, man, because there was one where I had, I don't know if I just, kind of like what you said, I underjudged or something. Like, even though I was able to range and pick something, I don't know if I just used the wrong pin, and it hit this target right in the leg. And I did one of those, and I was just talking to myself internally, like, dude, you got to come back from this. Like, pinwheel the next one, take your time. And luckily I did it. The next target was so they alternate every other target, which would be a Reinhardt. The next one would be a Delta Mackenzie. So you go from your, you could call upper to, it's just the center ring on a Reinhardt. And I knew that's what was coming up next. And luckily it was a target that I own. And I was like, okay, just visualize what it's like in the backyard. And luckily it broke, and it broke true. But I remember walking to that target at first, and I was like, dude, if you miss a target or do something like this, man, it was just frustrating. And so to hear how you could go from not getting too high, too low, and stay disciplined, because that translates into deer woods. I mean, there's been countless of times where I missed a deer where it's still early and I still have another crack at it, and I've come back to actually fill a tag after that, just because I'm able to, use the term of just flushing it. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to flush it. And it's a lot easier said than done, but when you get accustomed to, I guess, more failures than not, you learn to get pushed through that type of stuff.
Yeah. One of them, I followed Levi Morgan, PA guy, and now PA, my entire like shooting, right? When I got into this was like my 8th year, I think, shooting competitively. He was on his 10th world title, or, ASA Shooter of the Year, 10th straight. So he was like the guy. So I'm like, all right, well, he's the guy. Let's follow and let's watch him. And somebody asked him, how do you get past not shooting well and things? And I remember this because the quote stuck with me. He goes, when you're something to the effect of, when you're shooting a sport or something so precise, you have to be prepared to fail. I mean, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. He's one of the best in the world. He doesn't shoot a perfect score every time. He doesn't break a perfect shot every single time. So, you have to just accept failure.
Right.
A lot like baseball, right?
Yep.
Well, you're a Hall of Famer if you can hit 3 out of 10.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you have to accept failure, and how quickly can you get past it. And so I think that's one of the cool things about unknown archery, is that there's just another layer to the strategy, another layer to the game that you got to think about. There's just more to it. And so I think, again, with there being more to it, you get deeper into that next target, that next strategy, that next point of the tournament, versus click, shoot it type of thing. So you just got something else to think about on top of that, versus maybe continuing to dwell on the previous target or previous failure.
Right. So how many years have you been shooting archery overall?
So I didn't get started with a bow in my hand until I think I was a senior in high school. My dad bow hunted and stuff as long as I can remember. And I think, my first piece of, we'll call it archery equipment, was a Nerf crossbow or a Nerf bow. And man, I begged to go to the range and stuff with him all the time. And when I was younger, and he would take me every now and then. But yeah, I think he still bow hunted and stuff, but he kind of, wasn't at the range as much as he maybe was when I was really young, growing up, that I can remember, and all this stuff. But yeah, so good buddy of mine, I went bow hunting with him and just sat in his tree stand and stuff. And I'm like, I love hunting, but I want to quit waiting till middle of November till our rifle season. I'm the same age as you, so a lot of the same rules and stuff. I didn't get to go on my first hunt until I was 14 because I didn't have a bow at 12. So yeah, but I didn't pick up a bow until, I think I was 17, 18 years old. I got my first bow as a Darton, and got right to it from there. So yeah, just bow hunted and figured it out kind of from there, and had no clue about the competitive side of it until I think I was in my mid 20s. I just bow hunted as much as I could. I loved it. Bow hunted through college and everything. And, that's when YouTube started becoming a thing, and Cam Hanes and some of that stuff, but still had no clue about the competitive side. And then I moved home. I lived out in North Dakota for a couple of years, moved home, and then I was working for an archery shop. I just loved the archery side of it. And a guy that I knew, I said, hey, you're living over here. They could use some help. They'll teach you. Do you want to work in a bow shop? I said, yeah, sure. And so, I got my start kind of getting into a bow shop there when I moved back. And these guys started talking about indoor archery and 3D archery and stuff. And it's like, it's interesting. And then eventually somebody invited me to a local indoor 3D ASA. And so I got to shoot with a guy that I still credit a ton. He usually texts me after I give him a shout out on a couple of podcasts, but his name's Chad Bennett. But I got to shoot with him. He shot for Matthews at the time, was in known pro, and my bow was too fast to shoot K40. So I had to shoot the K50 class or whatever at the time. So I got to shoot with him that day, and he kind of showed me the ropes and was just a great mentor for a long time. And still get to talk to him quite a bit. He's out of target archery now and just goes and kills big deer and other animals in the country. Yeah, so I got the itch then and there. It's just
so cool.
Something about it. It was just like, okay, like this is cool, but I didn't do well. So how do we do better? How do we figure that out? And eventually bought my first target bow, bought my first Matthews target bow from him, and just started shooting locals and did all that stuff. And I think probably 2-3 years into the competitive side, I was like, all right, this is something I'm hooked on. There's great people. Lots of stuff to do locally. After hunting season, I could shoot all winter and the indoor side, and then get into spring and summer with the 3D stuff. So just haven't stopped.
Do you love the indoor stuff, or is it a love-hate situation?
Yeah, it's a love-hate. It's like for the longest time, I never shot paper. I just wanted to shoot foam and all that stuff. Papers, okay, sure, I'll sight in at 20 yards. This is easy, stuff. But I got to a point that I started taking this really serious, and people were telling me, like, listen, you got to become a better indoor shooter. That will help you as a 3D shooter. And so, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of bit the bullet and started shooting that. I used to shoot some leagues with the 5-spot stuff, and it took me forever to shoot a 300 in a 5-spot. And now I'm sitting here going, how did that take you forever to do? I mean, it's you get to a point that the precision and stuff and the expectation just starts to be so precise, no misses. And you got to start somewhere. So I started with 5-spot, and then I despise a Vegas face. Well, now you can pay me enough money to go shoot a 5-spot face. I will never go to indoor nationals unless somebody's paying me to go. I do not have the attention span to sit there and fire 60 arrows over and over and over again. Even the 3D side, or 3D, the indoor side, firing 20 yards, same thing over and over and over again. It does wear on me. I'd swear I have undiagnosed ADD. So again, like, to do the same thing over and over and over again, I lose focus and stuff after a while. But I have grown to love it, I guess, to answer your question. I mean, it's such a challenge. I'm still chasing a 30x game, but I get to see progression. I get to see, how good can I make myself? And it's such a good test, before we go out on a 3D, how good can we get at 20 yards with our setup and with our shot and everything like that. So,
because that's the one aspect I haven't really. There's a local, actually, he shoots for Elite as well, is Nate Sellers, Average Jack Archery. And
I heard Nate.
Yep, Nate's been a phenomenal shot in the hunter class, and this year, or I think this past summer, he did move to open. This is kind of like full year moving to that open class and challenging himself doing that. And he had, obviously, this is, I think, year 3 of the shop for him, and This year I signed my name up to do the indoor league. I've yet to bring my Exalt 35 down to go shoot my first round down there, and obviously with family stuff and everything like that, I still planning to do it. I still plan to cram 10 sessions in. I have no expectations, to be quite honest with you, with it. I'm kind of in that. I was fired up at first just because I want to become one with this Exalt 35 just for outdoor. But like how you were saying, there's something about shooting foam and doing that. Like I got that bug big time. And when you say attention span, man, so I teach archery in phys ed class, and we just do a big face. And sometimes I'm able to put a 5 spot out there just because we have some extra laying around. And we're just using the Genesis bows, and there's one that's pretty good as far as like, I don't want to say dialed in, but I kind of know where, if I'm using my instinctive method of shooting, like where the arrow is going to go. And same thing, man. I'll like, okay, I got 5 perfect. Next one is 4 only. And it's just like, it's so frustrating. But I'm like, I'm not using true equipment of what I would be using anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't fire me up as much as if you were to say, hey man, I got an indoor 3D league. Like now knowing what I know now, I'm like, I'd be all over it, type of ordeal.
It's a necessary evil, I think. Like I said, I think if you want to grow in archery, you've got to get good in indoor. Again, the precision to put up good scores and compete if you are putting yourself. And then I think too, 3D, we're shooting in groups of 3 or 4 on a national circuit. You got a couple people on your stake. It's a small, we'll call it intimate atmosphere, even though you're out in the middle of the woods, right? You don't just got a couple guys. But you go to some of these shoots, especially nationally, where you're on a line at Lancaster with 150, 200 people down, Spooky Nook there, or just even the local stuff that I shot Saturday night. I mean, you're sharing a line with, I think 20 some other people at a time. Not that they're looking at your target, but you're in close quarters. You got other people watching. It amplifies some of the pressure and just some of that. Just the atmosphere just amplifies things. Mm-hmm. And so I think, again, it's a necessary evil. I don't love it. I want to be outside. I'd rather shoot at foam all the time. But I think just the amount of repetition that you get from leagues and shooting those games and stuff like that, you can really start to find some measurables and tweaking your setups and your shot yourself and see where your scores go and start to do that. Because I truly believe if you can't get it at 20, how the heck are you supposed to get it at 50? There's so much more room for error. Yeah, so it's a really good place. And again, it's a great place to start, the year. I usually start my year in prepping. I usually get bows and stuff by mid-October, November, beginning of December, something like that. So usually about after Thanksgiving, I'm starting to kind of get the itch. I'm hoping I have a deer in the freezer and stuff, and I can just kind of take the rest of the late season easy. I don't got to really grind it out to try to fill the freezer. Yeah, usually I'm starting to do my training and setups and start thinking about January and into season.
So what you're saying is I got to get my ass in gear is what you're saying.
Yeah, again, it's all. That's the wonderful thing, right? There's so many disciplines about archery. It can be so many things to so many different people. But yeah, if you want to put it on the line and get a good, I equivalent this. So I ran cross country in high school to get ready for wrestling season. This is cross country to get ready for wrestling season. So, indoor gets you ready for outdoor. You just get so many repetitions and can just get your muscle memory correct. And you just get comfortable for the amount of arrows that you're shooting in a couple months. So. It's nice.
Yeah. So what's your like training regimen kind of looking like? I mean, you could even go from talking indoor to if anything changes for outdoor 3D. Like what does your training kind of look like?
Yeah. So like I'd mentioned, I because of my family dynamic and stuff, I get in at about 6 a.m. to our local club. It's a 24-hour club, so I could go anytime I want. But I usually wake up at 5, get in at 6 a couple days a week. This year I'm taking some emphasis off indoor. I'm not shooting any large national indoor tournaments. I'm putting all my focus onto ASA. And so that's somewhat taking some pressure off early in the year that, hey, I don't have a Lancaster to train for per se. So I used to, for the last couple of years, I was in 5 days a week at 6 a.m. and shooting, 50 to 60 arrows, usually shooting a game of Vegas face every morning with some warm up and such or any tweaks. And So yeah, but I'll usually shoot because of the weather too. You're probably experiencing it a bit too. Um, from again Thanksgiving till end of February into March, I'm stuck indoors for the most part. We do get those odd Michigan days where it'll be 60 in February. I'll get outside if I can, type of thing. But yeah, usually just trying to get as many arrows as I can, just really tweaking setups and just trying to find where I'm at. I've switched bows the last 4 straight years, I think, or 3 straight years at least. So the when I was my first year as a pro with Matthews, the title wasn't out yet, so shooting a Phase 4 and a TRX 36, and I shot the TRX series for a couple years and enjoyed it and liked it. So, but I shot a 38, I shot a 36. I was kind of bouncing around, and then the title came out, so I shot the titles for a year, and then that relationship changed, and now I'm shooting an elite. So I've got an Exalt 35 and both of my bows. Did shoot the Verdict for a little while, but just I fell in love. I bought a Verdict at the end of last year, end of last summer, and within a week, just felt great with it. And I went and won a tournament locally, or one of the big tournaments that we shoot at the end of the year. I shot really well on the known side, so I knew the bow was doing everything right. I didn't have to worry about judging, nothing like that. So yeah, but yeah, kind of getting back around it. As soon as the weather breaks, try to get outside as much as I can. So our club is a big club around here. It's great archery people, but it's a very, very busy club. We have league nights 7 days a week. So 6 out of 7 days, there's a league. So I can't typically get in the evenings again. So I go in the mornings, and then even when we get outside, there's in the early spring and stuff, they don't really have leagues, but I want to say beginning of April, they start field and hunter and FIDA leagues out on the FIDA course and stuff like that. So, but yeah, usually for about 2 months, I can get my targets out. They allow me to put some targets out in the woods, and that way I can start getting a jump on judging and seeing targets. So yeah, as soon as the weather allows, I try to get outside as much as I can. And then, yeah, I'm trying to get out multiple days a week. Again, I got a flexible job. So, if I can, I try to maybe get out a little bit early of work, and then I'll finish up sales stuff, at night when I'm inside. So yeah, just try to get outside as quick as possible. try to compete with all the Southerners, all the Southern guys. I've been talking a little bit of crap to my buddy Chris and Cody and some of these guys that live down in Arkansas. They just got piled on with snow. Yeah, right? They're not ready for this.
Welcome to my world.
Exactly, right? I'm like, good. This set you guys back a few weeks.
Yep.
So now you know what it feels like to be stuck indoors for a while and just shoot paper. So
yeah, that's the hard part for me last year was like getting into it, like knowing I wanted to do this. I missed the first Pennsylvania did a Cash for Clash kind of event where it was, I think 3 or 4, I think 3 events, and I missed. In order to get the grand prize, all that type of stuff in the final run of money, you had to shoot all 3. And I missed the first one. I wasn't able to do it. Maybe they had 4, but I ended up doing 2 of them. And like I told you how I did in those 2. But I was like, dang, April's early. Like I just remember even just because it was an early one and we had a pile of snow and my verdict wasn't in yet at that point in time. So I was kind of like behind the 8 ball. I think I had like a week. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to go dial in out to 60 to put a sight tape on this thing. And so I'm not rushing it to start it off. I'll shoot 2 and, just see how I do with it. But like you said, the weather could play a role in getting out there and doing that. So what do you do because I've had obviously just times where I'd just go shoot. I'm at my in-laws. I could stretch it out a little bit. And like, what's your recommendation on, like, there'd be times where I'd start out really good and then, maybe getting tired and, maybe not doing so well, or you start off, you're not doing that great. Do you just be like, I'm closing up for today. I'm going to come back either later this evening, maybe come back tomorrow. What's that situation look like when you just feel off, basically? Do you push through it?
Yeah, I think some of it depends on the day, and I think maybe some of it depends on like what the issue is. Like, why am I feeling off? Is it me? Did I have a bad night of sleep? Did I have too much caffeine today and I'm all over the place? Am I setting myself up for, we'll call it, errors or failure because I'm shooting in 20-mile-an-hour crosswind? but today's the only day I can shoot, and some of that stuff. So I guess we'll say it just depends on maybe what the issue is, right? Like if I just know like it's just me, I usually tend to just call it a day, or let's change the scenario or the setting, right? If I'm trying to pound at 50, let's just go to 25. Let's go to an area that I can build confidence in, and if it's still not going well at a short distance, let's just call it a day. Because I think if you keep doing it, you're just going to beat yourself up mentally. You might develop a bit of a bad habit. I think it could just get worse if you just try to push through it sometimes. But if you just feel like, hey, this is a setup issue, I need to run back into the club, I need to run home, run to a local shop or something, see if I can maybe get some adjustments made, and get back out here to try to change this. And that's the wonderful thing. I've lived it firsthand now. It's not a knock per se on Matthews, but the only thing you can really do is change mods on that to get different holding weight, different draw length, different poundage. In elite, that's one of the things I've loved so much already. I can be in the middle of a round and change my draw length by 1/4 of an inch. I can move my draw stops. I did it in the middle of a match, a head-to-head match on Saturday night. I got in between ends. I moved my draw stops out to 70%. I needed a little bit more holding weight. I knew I was close to the ends anyway, but I loosened up that Allen. I pushed my draw stops out. It shortened my draw length up just a touch, and I felt a much better, shot the rest of the night. So that ability to just do that stuff on the fly has been a huge help for me already. So yeah, but some of it, yeah, you just got to diagnose, like, why are we struggling today? And again, if it's a setup issue, don't be afraid to change it. I'm a huge advocate in tinkering and changing it until it's right. Changing it until because if it's wrong, what's the point? I don't want to say wrong as in wrong way to do it, but if it's wrong for you and it just doesn't feel right, why do we keep shooting it? If we're not getting the results we want, why do we want to keep setting ourselves up for failure? Make a change.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, whether that be draw length, holding weight, arrows, knocking point, just whatever it might be when it starts getting into tuning, don't be afraid to make that change, because you're one change away from like, holy crap, this is a whole new bow. I'm shooting great, and now your confidence is skyrocketing. And if you're confident, I think that's 75-80% of the battle that we shoot in archery.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
You can have a bad tune, or your shot might not be great, but man, if you're confident that day and things are rolling, you can turn in a much better scorecard than you normally do.
Yep. Yeah. So. No doubt. I mean, it's that day when I finished second. I was nervous as shit. that first target, and I think I hit like an 8, and that was what I shoot that day. I think I shot like 12 down, but that a lot. Like I said, it was a tough course, and I did not shoot a 5. Like my goal that day was like, do not shoot a 5.
There you go.
And then that happened, and I finished. Like I said, I finished second, and the second one was kind of the same goal again. Don't shoot a 5, and I used the wrong pin and drilled the for target 1. And I mean, dude, I was so confident. I stepped up to the line, and I was like, "Yep, I'm dialed." I put it to what it was, and I drew back. I was calm, cool, collected, and I had a great break. And it went thunk, like right belly of the doe target. And I was like, "What just happened? Like, what did I do? Did I hit something?" And I was like, dang. And of course, I was like number 1 because I shot whatever. I forget where I shot, but I know it was the first person or second person to go on the next target. And it was a tough course. It was like all up. It was all either going uphill or downhill, like side sloping a little bit. I hate shooting those. But anyway, I look, I was like, dang. I was using the CBE Trek site, and I had the multi-pin on, and I put the middle pin basically on the number, and I obviously used my top pin, and that's what ended up screwing me. So I was like, of course, the next target was like the boar black target bomb. It was like 47 yards, and I was like, I'm calling up, or just like I was just being an idiot, just getting aggressive, and I think I hit an 8. I was like, all right, way to go, man. Like, you're already down. Like, just, and I ended up, I forget what I shot that day, but that was the only 5. I shot a lot of 10s that day, a couple 12s. But all in all, like the way I recovered from that, like those first 2 targets I was actually like pretty proud of myself. But yeah, dude, it's crazy, and it's so addicting to what that side of things could do as far as like that archery side. Like you said earlier, it's sticking in my mind is how you said there's that extra layer to that unknown aspect of what you do. I mean, man, like just that whole competition side of archery just adds that layer. Like obviously people become obsessed with hunting and you're listening to podcasts and you're listening to reading magazines and you're watching YouTube videos of how guys set up on scrapes, how guys find bedding and do this and blah 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 blah. Like it's still interesting to me, but this is honestly, man, this is like what I've been really more so interested in the last like year and a half. Like I just love watching guys like yourself, seeing what you're doing, and just kind of like, how could I improve and maybe one day, 5 years from now, like not be a pro, but like, cause I don't think I have the skill set for it, but like, how could I go test myself and maybe go down to Foley? You know what I mean? Like just something like along those lines.
Well, even how I got here now, like, I've worked my ass off doing this. Like I've shot a lot of arrows. I've grinded, to get where I'm at now. I'm blessed to be where I'm at now. I frankly am. Again, I didn't win out a semi-pro. I podiumed. I proved to myself that I could shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I could shoot this. I could shoot this well. But my biggest thing, even turning professional, is like, listen, like I'm gonna chase this as hard as I possibly can, and I'm gonna give it my all. But let's just go do it. Like just jump in, and it's kind of like what you did. Like you just go shoot, start shooting some competition, because you don't know what you don't know. And maybe you're natural at it. Maybe if you never try, right, you never know. And so that's kind of where I've set myself up now. It's like, I don't think I finished, honestly, in the top half of our class. We've got 40, 50 shooters most weekends. I probably average a 30-ish place finish. So I'm not the worst, I'm consistent, but I also beat some guys that probably had a bad weekend. Again, it's just, you don't know what you don't know. And I've told myself, I'm going to go try to shoot the best guys in the world and pick this game up as best I can. And again, it probably comes back from wrestling. You didn't get any better at wrestling by being the best wrestler in your room. You just go beat everybody else. Like, and I think that's what you probably see it in PE and stuff, like where our world is at and our youth and stuff. I don't think parents push their kids very hard. They allow them to just sit and collect every trophy possible, and they just don't push them. And I hope I find a balance, so I don't like over push my kids and stuff, no matter what they do.
Yeah.
But I want them to, just push themselves, go see what you can do. And that's what I'm trying to do now I believe I'm good enough to be here. I'm going to find success at some point. Again, I think if I can change my living situation where I can step out the back porch while I'm grilling hot dogs in the summer and fire 20 arrows, come back in, help my family and my wife. If I can do that, I think I might find success a little quicker, being able to do that stuff. But at the end of the day, you just go push yourself, go try. And so, that's kind of, again, how I've gotten here. I just decided I'm going to go shoot with the best guys in the world. I've proven to myself, I've podiumed in semi-pro. I can do this. And, I'm going to go learn. And again, that's what I've told myself. It's going to be a learning process. I'm going to get my ass kicked. Again, it is so, so close out there. Again, you're to shoot 200 in a round is middle of the pack, or below middle of the pack, and so you've got to go hit rings and you've got to not make mistakes in our class. And I'm more or less, I know, because I practiced with some of the best. Again, one of my best friends is Chris Hacker out of Arkansas. I truly believe if Levi Morgan and Dan McCarthy weren't shooting, Chris would be the Dan or Levi. Again, he's on the podium in shoot-offs all the time with those guys the last 15 years as a professional. And we've become such great friends and get competitive when we see each other at these tournaments. And I can hang with him on a practice range. I've beaten him on a practice range.
Yeah.
Doesn't like to hear it because I let him know it. Yeah, but I know, I can compete with the best, and it's just getting over some of the humps and things of doing it when it matters. The practice range doesn't matter, at home doesn't matter, locally doesn't matter. I got to go do it when it matters, when the scorecards are getting turned in. But ultimately, I know I can do this. It's just just finding that breakthrough and that getting back to confidence, finding the confidence that, hey, I do belong here, and
Yeah, well,
these
and
numbers are good.
and that's what I was going to say to you is like, you need that confidence. Like, you can't go into that, first shoot and be like, man, I hope I do okay today. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be like, I'm going to give it everything I got. Kind of like what you probably would do before you go out and step on the mat, right? Like, you need to have that confidence in your ability. It's the same thing too, like with archery for hunting. I mean, there was a time where as a kid and growing up, like, I just see deer, kill deer type of ordeal. And then it's like you do this other aspect of things and you're overthinking it. And then you develop that buck fever and it's just like you shoot and you're like, what just happened? Like, what, and, and my dad's like, what happened? I'm like, oh, I don't know. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
I've told the story countless of times. Like, I mean, from 2016 up until 2022, I could have filled a buck tag every single year. But I made mistakes. And, there comes a time where it's like, I've made a promise to myself. I'm going to do everything in my power to train and practice and not have that happen. And these last couple of years, I've never felt more confident with a bow in my hand with me drawn back on an animal.
Yep.
And, you do have to have that confidence. Like now I mean, 2 years ago with my archery buck in Pennsylvania, and I talked about it. I mean, he wasn't the biggest deer and I don't care about that, but it was when he came up, I already shot a doe like 5 minutes prior. I never doubled up. And I had the thought process of like, now I could go to Ohio for a full week if I kill this deer. And I just remember being like, yep, you're dead. And I drew back. Like I had that confidence of that mentality. Like I knew nothing was going to go wrong. I didn't have to worry about any limbs or anything like that, of tree limbs hitting or anything like that. I just knew that I was going to just put a perfect shot on that deer, and I did. You know what I mean? So it's like that confidence in the woods, you need to have that obviously when you step out and go after, and then you have to be able to flush it really quick. And I loved hearing that perspective from you on that.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that I can tell people if they're like on the fence or, oh, I'm a bow hunter. I'm a bow hunter. Like competition side of things has made, I don't want to say bow hunting easy,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I shoot so many arrows from January 1st to October 1st and then through season and stuff that when you get into the woods, it just is second nature. The last deer I missed was that one. I shot him. This is Michigan buck. That's 150 inch, 10 point. I shot him. I think that was 2017. I had him at 48 yards, and I was again following Cam Haynes, shooting 70, 80, 100 yards, holding paper plate groups and stuff. His mentality is I practice at those distances, so when 40, 50 yards shots come up, they're slam dunks. And I still don't think that shot in a whitetail woods is a slam dunk ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that literally might be the last year that I missed. I missed him at 48 yards on like the third day of season. And then I got a shot at him at 30 yards a week later and double lunged him and found him. So, but yeah, it just becomes second nature. Again, I shoot. I get way more nervous to try to hit a nickel or a dime at 20 yards, with people around me and stuff like that. I've never shaken so much that I have in an indoor situation and where things are on the line and the room for air is so small
Mm-hmm.
than I ever have in the woods. Again, shot 2 beautiful bucks with my bow, but I think you just go into cruise control and then there's this huge adrenaline dump after.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's like, yeah, but I can tell you every single time that to my knowledge, I don't think I've ever blacked out going, what the hell happened?
Mm-hmm.
I knew exactly where that pin was. I fired a shot and it broke. And again, I use it as a way to advertise. I shoot Schwacker broadheads. I haven't, track a deer over 70 yards in 6 or 7 years. You go put a good shot on them, that arrow does its job and they pile up, So yeah, I think, but that's the biggest thing I think you can take away as a competitive archer back into the woods is you just do it so much and you understand setups and stuff and understand your shot that it just becomes second nature. You're just standing in the tree stand and have your clothes on. You're
Yeah.
not sweating to death in the middle of London.
Yeah,
London,
exactly.
it's 90 degrees. So
Yeah.
so yeah, but that's probably the easiest transition or biggest transition from competition to the woods is just the amount of arrows you shoot all year and stuff that when you get a chance in October, November, it's second nature at that point.
And when you talk about arrows, what's your arrow setup for competition?
So I usually I bounce back and forth a little bit last year, but again, another thing I'm loving about my Exalt, it's such a fast bow. I have a 28 and a half inch draw length. So my previous bows and stuff, Matthews just seemed to be a little bit slower. So I always had to shoot a 23 diameter arrow to get speed, or I had to twist up the strings and cables and get shoot stuff at 73, 74 pounds to get speed. Exalt is at 65 and a half pounds with a Super Drive 25, and I'm shooting 294. I mean,
Nice.
so a 25 series arrow is just great for 3D. You got the diameter and stuff to catch lines and stuff, but I think it's still plenty forgiving to shoot at distance and such too. So yeah, but I really settled in on the Super Drive 25s again because of the speed I'm getting out of my Exalt. I love it. It's been such a blessing to be able to turn my draw weight down and still get the speed and stuff that I need for judging an open class.
Yeah, man. No, that's awesome. How is, I mean, I know you've been saying how happy you have been, but what's the, like you said, you've had a couple new bows over the last couple of years, and when you look at right now to maybe settle down for this year, and you're not shooting anything substantial right now for indoor, like you said, you're really just focusing on this upcoming ASA season. How important or like confident are you going to feel, like happy going into that session now, like knowing like, what, it's just me and the bow until the time's going to matter? And I think that's really, from an outsider's perspective, I think that's really good. You're not forcing yourself to go out and compete right now when you've only had it for a little bit and it's like a new transition. Like I think for what you do and what your goals are, it's not easy by any means. Just be like, oh yeah, give me, whatever. Like if I mean, yeah, I'm sure Levi, if you gave him a bow tech right now, he still could go and shoot really extremely well. But we're not all Levi. So I think that's a really awesome perspective of you just taking this time to shoot indoor a little bit, but to get your arrows in, but then also like focus really on that ASA to be familiar with your equipment.
Yeah, I think the big thing is I was able to get my hands on one before we got into bow season and in the fall last year. I was fortunate enough to get one from a local shop here, get it set up pretty quick. I have my own shop here at my house, so I can literally do anything and everything, tuning and setup wise and stuff. So I was able to get my hands on one, immediately just pleased with how it held. I'm a command shooter as well.
Mm-hmm.
In competition. I actually have it backwards, so I shoot a hinge in the woods and I command shoot on a 3D course and target course. Yeah, when I was able to go out and post a high score, one of my higher scores known, after literally 14 days of having the bow, I didn't have a whole season with it, didn't have this great relationship with a bunch of arrows through it that I knew exactly how this bow was going to react, and the bow just pointed and it just aimed. And as a command shooter, if it don't move or doesn't move a whole lot and it's where it needs to be, I can fire my shot confidently and know that it's going to be close or land where it needs to. And yeah, so that's probably been a big help, as I've shot it under a competitive atmosphere, competitive round so far. So yeah, I've just been now just getting my reps in. I did make like some changes. I'm not indoor. I used to shoot a dot, and have maybe a very specific indoor setup. Again, I'm not shooting an indoor national tournament. I'm putting my focus on 3D. So I went back to trying to shoot my bows as close to a 3D setup as possible. I have one bow shooting 27s. I don't like losing either, so I don't want to leave a 25 series arrow to a 27. There's a difference. Again, and X counts and stuff matter. I'm trying to be as competitive as possible as well too. So I got one bow set up with 27s and stuff right now for indoor, and then my other one is set up for 3D, ready to rock. So yeah, I'm confident that when we get to Foley, I'll be just fine. It's more of the rangefinder for me.
Yeah.
If I know how far it is, I feel confident I can hit it. I don't know if I'm going to be, Jimmy Lutz and Kyle Douglas, just pound 17, 18 out of 20 type of thing. But, if I could figure out how far it is, I'm going to hit some rings and be competitive with it.
Hell yeah, man. No, that's awesome, dude. And what do you have any goals set for yourself this year for this upcoming year? Along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel so unsatisfied with how my professional career has gone, and I try to be gracious to myself. I'm learning. I haven't been judging. I haven't been judging for a lifetime. I've been judging for I think 4 or 5 years now. This will be my 5th year, so I still have a lot of targets to see, a lot of situations to get into, strategies and such. So yeah, I mean, my goal still, I still think I can win, right? You catch fire for a weekend, and that's what it is. Again, confidence, and you just catch fire for a weekend with good numbers. I think anybody in our class can win, and so that's obviously the number one goal. But yeah, I want to make shoot offs, and then, like, again, not realistically with myself, like, let's finish in the top 20. Let's finish it. Let's get some top tens. Let's not shoot any fives in a weekend. Go a couple weekends without shooting fives. They're so detrimental to your score, and even mentally. You got to get past them, but they really do tank your scorecard. And so, uh, it takes a really strong weekend to recover from shooting a five, even out of 1 out of 40 targets. So just staying away from making big mistakes, and really scoring well. I think that's probably my biggest thing. Is I've been able to keep it in the 10 ring pretty well, but that doesn't score
Yeah.
well. That doesn't get you in the shoot off. Is keeping it in the 10 ring in our class. It did it in semi pro, but in our class you've got to hit 12s. So I'm just trying to keep my 12 count up as high as I possibly can, and give myself an opportunity to make the dance on Saturday afternoons.
Heck yeah, man. No, dude, that's awesome. And I'm pumped. I'm excited to watch you this year and see your success and how you come through it with everything. And you lit a fire under me tonight and making me go shoot a little bit, like how we were saying earlier. I snuck like 5 arrows in to shoot outside, like it was getting a little bit of dark, and it's like, my wife took the baby upstairs for a bath. My oldest was like doing something else. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go rip 5 arrows. You got to take what you can get, man. So no, dude, Rob, I appreciate you taking the time tonight to talk archery, talk a little bit of hunting. We didn't probably cover as much as I really would want to, but that actually sets up perfect, because now we could have another conversation here another month or two or something. We'll do part 2 and see where you're at, and maybe I'll have another idea of what we could kind of cover in that one. I kind of already have an idea, but dude, I appreciate your time. I know you got a lot going on. I got some stuff I got to attend to for tonight. And where can people follow along, see what you're up to, and anything along those lines?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram a ton. I'm trying to be more active, and going to try to produce more content this year. So I'm trying to do that. But just my first initial, my last name, on Instagram, and then Facebook, Rob Yahrmarkt and stuff. So I don't think I'll dive down the YouTube channel yet, but I'm going to try to produce more reels, and just put out more quality content on my Instagram and stuff, so people can follow along with the season, and just some of the things that I do, some of the things that have helped me get to another level, or some helpful hints and tips and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna try to be a little bit more proactive in that side of things with social media. But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man. I can talk about this stuff for hours, and look forward to hopping back on here in a couple months.
Heck yeah, man. We'll for sure do that, dude. I appreciate your time. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you go check Rob out. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you did as well. But also, I'm telling you, just listening to Rob and just knowing, the success that he's had, and just the eagerness that he wants to continue to have and strive for. It's awesome. So give him a follow, check it out, see how that journey goes, and push yourself. Like I said, man, you don't know unless you try it, and that was very well said during that episode. So thanks again, Rob. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Antler up.